Good morning, Mr. Sandberg.
Good morning.
Now, you covered this election, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Up and down, left and right, any direction you want to put it. I was there.
You described yourself as quite an opportunistic journalist, wouldn't you?
If I can find information, I will try my best to use it as long as it's true.
That's right, because you go after the juiciest stories, the most interesting stories, don't you?
The most honest, juicy stories.
Yes, Mr. Sandberg. Because you believe that the juiciest stories, as a reporter, those would sell the best, don't they?
Yes, sir. You should have seen my first article. Man in boxers leads police on brief chase. I was so ambitious then. So ambitious.
Must have been a captivating story, Mr. Sandberg,
To say the least.
to say the least. Now, you yourself believe that for this very reason, reporting in District 12, that would be a right location to find these juicy, interesting stories.
Yes, it was an underdog story. Your Rocky of elections, if you will.
If there was no underdog story, it wouldn't be as interesting a place for a story, wouldn't it?
Oh, it could have been. Probably not. Who knows? But in this case, it was.
Now, leading up to the polls, you're aware that there are three major organizations that do polling for this election leading up to the date.
Yes, there are.
And you believe that out of all these three, the N5 polls are actually the most accurate, most reliable?
Typically, yes, but in this case, you have to look at N5 with a little bit of hesitation, because they were affiliated directly with the Heisman campaign.
However, there was no specific reason for you to infer that that would lead to definite bias?
No, not exactly.
So just to clarify for the members of the jury, despite that caveat, you still believe they were the most reliable data polling center?
Typically they were, yes, but as I said, you have to approach them with a little bit of hesitation, in this case.
Sure. Now, in October 2014, when these polls first started, the N5 polling system, they actually had Max Heisman at 28 points ahead, didn't they?
Yes, and you have to give a plus or minus 3%,
Sure.
but it started at plus 28, yes.
And even at the beginning of 2015, just a couple months before the election date, they still had Max Heisman in a decided lead.
Absolutely. At that point, there was no direct opponent for Max Heisman. Oh, my pen. Oh, well. But, hey, as it started to get closer to the election, it started to show that Ginger was truly a force to be reckoned with.
Sure. And as they got closer to the election and as the gap between them narrowed, Mayor Max Heisman, he made some changes to his campaign strategies, right?
Yes, both of them did.
In fact, the changes that Mayor Max Heisman made were he began to start calling out his opponent more actively.
Yes, started to actually address Ginger.
And when he addressed Ginger, he tried to point out the weaknesses in her campaign. He said that Ginger was an inexperienced liberal.
Objection. This constitutes as hearsay.
What's your response?
Your Honor, we're not using this for the truth of the matter asserted to show that Elizabeth Ginger was actually inexperienced or was actually a liberal. This is not hearsay.
Your response?
Again, if they're not using it for that purpose, then I would amend my objection to relevance.
Your Honor, this goes directly to relevance as they are bringing a charge of election fraud. This goes to show that the campaign changes that Max Heisman made were legitimate and did not constitute any unethical behavior.
I'm going to overrule the objection and allow this in. Thank you, gentlemen. You may proceed.
Now, in pointing out the flaws in Elizabeth Ginger's platform, he painted her as an inexperienced liberal, right?
Well, he painted her as all sorts of things. An inexperienced liberal, the perfect candidate, people that would, I don't know. It was one or the other. It really depended on what district you looked at. In 12, she was an Ivy Leaguer. In 1, she was the worst thing since, well, I don't know, the Ford Fusion.
Right, Mr. Sandberg. Thank you for that. Now, District 12, that was her home district, right?
Yes, it was.
And that was mostly a district populated by the less educated, the poor?
Yes.
And that was a district where Max Heisman tried to paint her out as a Ivy Leaguer, right?
Absolutely.
Now, just the same month as the election, the N5 poll still had Max Heisman in the lead, right?
Yes, but only slightly at that point.
Sure, but still in the lead.
Still in the lead, but the other two, not so much.
You conducted some interviews around Truman, right, during this election?
Absolutely, all over.
You conducted interviews with quite a lot of the people you found in District 12?
Yes.
However, the only interviews you conducted were in District 12, right? The home district of the Ginger?
Yes, when I was interviewing people, I was trying to find out how the people were reacting to Ginger.
However, you didn't interview Max Heisman supporters in District 1, did you?
No, it was pretty obvious from the polls that he already had supporters in all of the districts, 1 through 12, just as Ginger did.
You also didn't ever talk to Mayor Max Heisman directly?
Actually, no, I had interviewed Mayor Max Heisman 2 times.
Sure, and from those interviews you couldn't gauge if any unethical behavior was going on?
Yeah, that's true. But he did change the polling location from the school to the Slow-Low gym, which was pretty odd.
Sure. Thank you, Mrs. Sandberg. I have no further questions, Your Honor.